All right. Second part of the color correction videos. And cropping again, just like the other ones, you can tilt your crop to match the angles. You know that you're askew, a little crooked with your camera. You can grab a corner. You don't even have to be on the corner, outside of the corner to tilt it. I think a lot of this you guys know already, but pretty simple stuff. But just in case. And as we move along here, I'm going to be cloning some because it still was pretty straight in terms of perspective or any warping. So I just need to clean up some edges, and that's what I'm doing now with the clone brush. Big spots that they're just too big for dust and scratches to handle, which we'll do later. So just clean up some of the big, obvious mistakes, glaring areas. Let's see. Um, looks like I'm moving on to. This was actually a mistake. I'm looking at. Normally it would go here, but with this photo, there's a little bit of noise in it, and I realized that. And if I actually do the sharpening now, I'm just going to be sharpening the noise. So as I'm kind of slowly going on here, I'm thinking, oh, wait a second. I don't want to sharpen the noise. And then I go back into try and fix up the color noise in there with the reduce noise filter. And you gotta get in close to see what's happening. And with the resolution on this video, you might not. It's very, very subtle that it kind of evens out, or it evens out just subtly the little color noise that you get. You can see it a little bit. And that happens with depending on the quality of your camera and also your ISO, which is equivalent to film speed. The higher the number, the faster the idea of film speed, although it's not film, but the faster film, the darker situations you can photograph in. So setting it here, usually with a lot of light, you can set it for with a lower ISO and avoid getting a lot of noise. But again, if your camera's not that nice of a camera, you're going to get noise. But we can try and reduce that a little bit with this filter. And the strength of it, that you're making the filter work, also preserving details, the reduced color noise, all of those little variables change how it'll affect your piece. And you don't want a big, gross, overall kind of blurring, getting rid of detail effect. So, you know, move them around a bit, find out, what works best for you and in the situation. And also just turn preview on, and also I see it on the large image, not just the sample window. All right, here again, I've reduced the noise, looking around at what's going on in terms of the information that I have there, making sure that I haven't lost anything that I really want. And I believe the next step, yeah, I'm going to be now doing the sharpen. Now I'm doing the sharpen before I actually clean up the dust and scratches. So because there are little artifacts around that can be found around dust and scratches that are a little annoying. If I run dust and scratches first, it will sometimes it'll have little edges around them from where it blurred out, and maybe one wasn't big enough and the pixel radius wasn't big enough. So now I'm doing dust and scratches here. Let's see. Looking at dust and scratches, I believe this might have been a mistake as well. Let's see, dust and scratches. Did I run the unsharp mask? I think I did sharpen it a little bit. Didn't want to sharpen too much. I'm lost in my own video. And let's see. Now we're running dust and scratches. And well, you can see the artifacts there a teeny bit in terms of you can get little edges around your dust and scratches, and you have to fix the radius and the threshold so that it blends in nicely. That's the reason you wanted to run the the unsharp mask, which is a sharpening agent, first. Because if you run it after this, then those little artifacts that are made by dust and scratches will get sharpened. And we don't want to sharpen extra artifacts in it. So just one step before the other will make a little bit of a difference and help you out. Mostly you have to be zoomed in to see these things. But here I made when I ran the dust and scratches, it was on that layer on the bottom, the background layer. And then I had cloned the original layer and put it on top. And now I've made a few kind of using the wrong brush and forgetting to work on the correct layer here. And so there's a couple of mistakes that I'm having to just go back in history and find my starting point again with my two layers. Again, background layer, the bottom layer has the dust and scratch filter run on it. The top layer is the one before that. It's been sharpened in all the other processes. But now, as I go through and turn back on that top layer, and now I just erase out all the little specular highlights down to the background layer, which has the dust and scratches filtered. So I'm erasing it out and all the little specular highlights, and I will go through the whole piece like this. It's a little time consuming, a little monotonous, but all these little glints and the hairs and etc. That we want to get rid of. I don't want to get rid of too much detail. The reason I do this and don't leave it is on just dust and scratches, it can blur things out, as you saw, and get rid of detail. We moved on here to near the end of me covering the whole process, getting rid of some of the bigger things. Around there in that upper left-hand corner, I hate to do it. I like some of the texture and the brush stroke, but it got a little too noisy in there. It's competing with the rest of the image, so I am knocking it back and still erasing down to the dust and scratches level. And as we move along, should be finishing up here soon, yeah. And then we're going to correct that corner because it's a little bleached out. It's a little light. It's not exposed correctly, and I want to fix it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a mask with the right here. I forgot to turn the mask on, so click there we go. And now with a gradient pull that goes from black to transparent, I'm just pulling in the mask mode a mask over it. Now right now I'm masking out that section. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. It's just easier for me to see and perceive what's going on. And now I'm going to go in and just, if I had a selection of the night, I could have used that to mask out the area, but I didn't, and I am now just going in and erasing out the part of the mask over the night. And there we go. And now I reverse it because that's what I want. I'm going to clean the mask up a teeny bit there. But that's the section I want to mask. So I just reversed it. I just think sometimes it just how you want to approach a mask. You can always reverse it in terms of what's easier for you to draw around. And so there's my mask out of the mask mode, and I could save it now. I'm not going to. I'm just going to go into the Edit, Levels, and I'm going to tweak it, try and take some of the white out of it. That's the bottom one. I'm taking white out. I'm going to pump up the midtones, just playing with the midtones there, seeing if I want to make them down a little bit, but it could get a little too saturated. I did not go into a lab color yet, so you'll see what's going on, but it's not going to be necessary here. So it's like I actually lighten the midtones a teeny bit, but still take some more white out. Just adjusting that, trying to get it not too intense, not too dark, not too, there you can see why we just went right down into, I'm working in the channels now. I forgot to even look at that. We're in the, must have been in the, I'm in the green channel, seeing if, because most of it is green. I'm going to head up into the red channel and see about taking some of the red out. It's getting more green and yellow. And each one can be adjusted in terms of its white point, midpoint, black point, or taking white and black out, which is the bottom output levels that you see that slider. And before and after. And before I move on do anything else, I can fade levels over there and edit. So I can, it's not even a mask, but it's just the opportunity you can have between changing the mode and opacity of that last action that you ran. If you do any more painting after that, then that's gone. It can only be the next step. So let's see. Trying to remember what we're doing here. I think what I'm going to be talking to you about, yeah, is dodge and burn in RGB, and then also dodge and burn or any color adjustment in lab color. So as I have it on highlights now, and as I start to dodge, which is lightning, and if you can always think of burn, usually when you burn something it gets blackened and dark, right? But so that's the way I always kind of remember. But look how saturated and intense those colors get. They get garish, and you can tell. I mean, there's a big hue change in there in terms of saturation. Uh, and that's not, maybe in part you want that, but it's also one of those telltale signs of Photoshop and editing, and maybe just not being a little bit more subtle. But here, in terms of if I want to dodge in with a more natural way of dodging, here is in lab color. And lab color, as you can see, it's lightening, and it actually seems to be cooling, because what it's doing is just lightening those areas. And as we know, we always talk about adding white into lightening an area. It's going to cool it off for the most part. So that's what's happening. It's just lightening the colors. It's not changing their saturation. It's also not, besides cooling them off, it's not changing them the way Dodge can in RGB. It can actually change the color, pushing it warmer or cooler, usually warmer in Dodge. So as you can see, I'm just going around, just playing around and showing some of these, just seeing how it would look in a lot of these areas. And we're all still in lab color. And there are times when you don't want to be in lab color, you want to keep that warmth. Or perhaps you want to do it without the saturation and come back in, lighten the whole area. You could warm it up again, by adjusting it and curves or color balance, etc. I just did a big overall kind of big brush dodge on that section. So, and I'm going to switch back to RGB, because you can always switch back and forth. You're never stuck in lab color now. You can go back to RGB, and now I'm using the midtones on the dodge brush and lightening up that area. Now, that's not so bad really here, but you can tell that it's definitely pumping up the saturation, changing the colors a little bit, and that, like the green in the sky and the yellows, it's just too much. And here I go back and forth. I already told you this, but what I'm trying to do is say, like, here, there's lab colors down there. I'm in RGB. Go back into mode, and I go back into lab color. It doesn't matter. You can go back and forth between those modes, so you're not stuck, as I was saying. Um, yeah, there we go again. Back and forth, back and forth. So not to worry about getting stuck in any of the modes. Of course, if you go into grayscale and you say discard color information, then it's discarded. You can always go back in history, but if it's too far back in history, you've lost it. Now we're going to move into the color correction, selective color. So instead of curves, we're using selective color. And this is wonderful because there are all these red, yellow, green, blue, magenta, cyan, the white, the midtone, the black, that you can adjust. And you can adjust each of those colors, how much cyan, how much magenta, how much yellow, are taking out, to a negative point, like we're doing here in the red. This red, it's not really to the reds in the piece. It's not the red channel, but it's to the predominantly, colored group of red in here, and that has a range, but it is finite. Here we're taking magenta out, putting magenta in, all still to the reds in the piece. And so this is a little more time consuming, but I actually find a little bit more control doing this without masks. And there are no masks that I'm going to be using in this, but definitely could and do if something really needs to change without it being a universal, an area needs to change without it being a universal image color change. So again, the yellows, going through the yellows, and I do this a lot. So I do the big gross changes and see, well, do I want this? Take out some yellow, put in some yellow, see how much it's affecting it by moving the slider a lot, and then I can come down and say, well, there's just -9, took some yellow out. And you can, of course, down here, the black slider is just the lightness, darkness of that particular section of colors for each one. So here's green. Sometimes I move that slider first because it will show me where the greens are in a more apparent way, instead of, if I see the yellows, the subtlety of the change of yellow, etc., in that green, just to find out if there's much green in there to move and change, which, visually in this one we could tell. But so again, it's moving the sliders, deciding whether you want to, in each case, put in more cyan, take out more cyan, put in more magenta, take out more magenta. And here in the cyans, there's not much to do in there. The blues, I'm trying to see, here I am trying to see how much we're going to affect anything that's blue in there. The magentas, not a lot going on in there. So then we go to the white. And with this, there's not, you can see up there in that corner, I just pointed at, that's the one point that's got some, the very top of the value scale, white, maybe a couple of values down from that. But most of this is not that bright, is not that light in terms of value. Even the glint on the armor is not so close to anything like a specular highlight or white, so it's not affecting them that much. It is a little bit, as you can see. I'm tweaking it, but it's mostly for that upper left hand corner. And let's see, the neutrals there's tons of neutrals. In most paintings there's really tons of neutrals, so it seems like a very, very large, clumsy fix. And if you're not subtle with it and move it ever so slightly, and especially in the neutrals, as you'll make it all just kind of garish green or blue or whatever. You won't, I mean, because you'll say it doesn't work, it's not doing anything for me. But if you move it in, very small amounts, it'll work. But now we're in the black, uh, dealing with the blacks, which of course will be, the bottom, the, the, the darkest values to a couple steps up. It's not just the black, it goes up a little bit. It's a little subset of the value scale down there. And I just put in, see, it looks like I took out a teeny bit of yellow in the black so far is what I've done. And I am probably going to take out a teeny bit. No, I see, I'm taking out, well, see how it's getting blue because I'm taking out all that yellow, blue purple kind of thing. And I'm seeing, to the extremes you can get some strange or neat effects. But for color correction, all I wanted to do is, it looks like I just want to have it cool off those shadows. And in doing that and taking out some of that yellow, it actually lightens the shadow, the dark areas, a little bit. You also want to see, I'm not sure the technical reasons between relative and absolute, but I usually work in absolute because it's a little more apparent, a little stronger of an effect, and it seems to get the results that I want. And basically, we're done. There's the image. I'm pretty happy with it. It's pretty close.